Welcome, everyone, to the Fandom Podcast Network special presentation of Time Warp 1983, the movies in pop culture, its 40th anniversary. In this episode of Time Warp, we're going to be covering pop culture, which includes all of the movies and TV and notable news, of course, in 1983, and we're doing it a few months at a time. And like I said, this is where we make you feel a little old because all of this in 1983, here in 2023, everything is 40 years old. So welcome to Time Warp 1983. In this episode, we're going to cover the pop culture and news and music from April, May, and June. And then we're going to discuss the movies in April. In the next episode, we're going to discuss just the movies in May and June. So, but I can't do this alone. You know I need my Time Warp crew. So with me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, brother?
Will you gag me with a spoon? Because, oh, what a feeling. Time Warp is here.
Nice. Like that intro. Very good. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
I am doing well. Excited to get back into the movies of 1983, and we're doing it a little. We've got some interesting stuff we're going to be adding to this particular episode too, Mr. Reitzel, because you've had a couple of experiences with some of these movies in the modern time of 2023.
I'm glad you teased that, Kyle, because I did delay this recording for that particular reason. So I appreciate you. And of course, our other co-pilot, Queen of Movie Foo. Welcome back, Lacey Pants. How are you, Lacey?
Hello. I'm well. How are you guys?
Doing really good. Glad to have you back. As I mentioned, Time Warp 1983, 40th anniversary. This is part 2. And we got a lot to cover here on Time Warp. And, of course, this is the Fandom Podcast Network. If you're listening to this, make sure you check us out, of course, on fpnet.podbean.com. But also, more importantly, please make sure you check out YouTube, Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube, because this episode is on YouTube. And we have a lot of fun visual posters and other fun stuff that we're going to accompany this podcast. So make sure you check it out. All right, guys, we are talking about the movies of April of 1983 in this one, but we're going to touch, as I mentioned, the pop culture, the movies, some music and stuff like that from April through June in this episode as well, because I think it deserved its own little special moment in this podcast because there's a lot of cool stuff to do. Now, of course, what we've been doing is, when we think about films that we haven't seen, we challenge you watchers and listeners out there. We're going to be talking about some films we haven't seen, maybe trying to convince each other to go back and watch these. So make sure, if you haven't seen them, check it out. We've had some interesting experiences, as Kyle teased earlier, with some of these films that are celebrating their 40th anniversary. So I also want to mention, too, that this specific year was kind of the year of sex comedies. And we're going to touch on a couple of those. They became very popular, of course, after Porky's, and very popular on home video. So we will definitely be bringing those to light as well. We're going to be touching on some of those. But, guys, I think we need to hit a little bit of, a time machine, something like that. So I don't know. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and check things out. Now, there's many ways to travel back in time. We can fuel up that DeLorean with the flux capacitor, or better yet, to hot tub time machine combined with the DeLorean, like in this picture here. I love that. We could also slingshot around the sun in a captured Klingon bird of prey. Take a step into that blue police box or that phone booth, or step into the quantum leap accelerator. We got to travel back to 1983. Yes, Kyle?
I have a question. When you combine two time machines like that, doesn't it just counteract and you just end up where you started all over again?
That depends on which movie you are watching and what Chernobyl you are pouring into your pool. It depends on a lot, but it could be a problem. So yeah, but let's look back in 1983 here, guys. We had some major stuff going on. U.S. population was 233.8 million. We'll get into some of the popular songs. Washington Redskins won the Super Bowl, World Series, Baltimore Orioles. Stanley Cup was the New York Islanders. As I mentioned, Kyle and Lacey, home video was starting to become a thing as well. That's one of the things we'll touch on. But I want to mention some average cost here. The Dodge Ram 50 truck was about $5,600. Oh my God, that sounds so cheap. The Volkswagen Rabbit was about almost $7,000. Ford Mustang was about $6,500. And the Timex Sinclair copy computer was $179. Gosh, why is the Volkswagen Rabbit almost, $2,000 more? I'm kind of curious about that.
It's an import cost.
Yes, there you go. We do have some world news here. First of all, Ronald Reagan, president, Vice President George Bush, Chief Justice Warren E. Burger out of Minnesota, and of course, the Speaker of the House, Mr. Tip O'Neill from Massachusetts. In April, the embassy bombing in Beirut kills 63 people. This was huge news. Changed a lot for not only our servicemen overseas, but how they protected themselves as well. Big deal, very, very sad. And it's still one of those moments that I know U.S. history looks on, but it is one of those things where when they are traveling abroad, this is something that has changed everything. Kyle, do you remember this?
Yeah, I do. And I remember that it was at the time, travel-wise, had the biggest effect on travel until 9/11 happened. And I just remember that people became paranoid about traveling with this too because of this bombing. And I think it was the thing that really kind of awakened the terrorist mental thought process that ran through a good portion of the 80s as well.
U.S. was a target and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Lacey, you remember this?
I was 10, so I do vaguely remember bits and pieces just because I had my aunt and uncle were stationed overseas at the time. They were in Germany. So it was, they were, so much closer to it. But again, at 10 years old, I probably caught the tail end of a news article or something like that. And it was maybe like when I walked into the room, the conversation would stop just because I was 10.
Understood. Yeah. The Disney Channel in April is initiated on American cable TV.
I just have this thought, Kevin, crossing my mind. If you were to show modern age kids the original version of the Disney Channel, the reactions and the looks on their faces that they will think they'd be seeing.
Yeah, how things have changed. April 25th, Manchester, Maine schoolgirl Samantha Smith is invited to visit the Soviet Union by its leader, Yuri Andropov, after he read her letter in which she expressed fears about nuclear war. And on that July 7th, later on, Samantha flies to the Soviet Union. In May, Lebanon, Israel, and the United States sign an agreement on Israel withdrawal from Lebanon. May 25th, National Missing Children's Day is proclaimed by President Ronald Reagan exactly 4 years after Ethan Pat's disappearance. Benton fireworks disaster, May 27th, a powerful explosion at the unlicensed fireworks factory in Benton kills 11 injuries one. Ton Sneva wins the Indianapolis 500 motor race. And May 31st, Philadelphia 76ers beat LA Lakers to sweep the NBA championship in 4 games.
And the significance of that, too, is the great Dr. J finally won his NBA championship.
That's right. It took a while, didn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
News through. What's that?
I said, go sports ball.
June in 83, throughout the local summer, many Midwestern American states are affected by a severe drought that causes water shortages. The 13th of June, Pioneer 10 becomes the first made man object to leave the solar system. June 16th, Court Graham is caught off the Vietnamese island in Phu Quoc looking for treasure buried by Captain Kidd. He is convicted and imprisoned until 1984 for illegal entry. When I picked up this bit of news, I don't even remember this at all. That sounds like a really good movie. Get on it.
Right.
June 18th, Sally Ride becomes the first American woman in space on the Space Shuttle Challenger. There you go. Yes, Lacey.
I met Sally Ride. She was awesome. We bonded over the fact that we had both turtled boats before. Okay, I'm done.
You both what boats?
Turtled a boat. Turtling a boat is when it goes completely over, mast down.
Oh, wow.
Where
That's cool.
You're looking at a rudder.
That's awesome. Real quick, where did you meet her?
I was the hostess in a restaurant, and it was one where you have the pad outward and people sign themselves in, and then
Yeah.
you call their last names as you come up. And she signed in, and I said, Ride, like Sally Ride. She said, exactly like Sally Ride. And I looked up, I was like, I have things that we have to talk about. She was like,
that is so cool.
I'm waiting on my she was waiting on her lunch partner, and we chatted for probably 20 minutes. She was delightful.
Picture autograph?
No, this is not this is a pre-phone camera situation.
That's so cool, though. I love that. Yeah. All right, guys. Because you were born in 1983, we have some celebrity births here in April. Matt Lanter, actor and model. A lot of people know him, of course, through Star Wars. Sean Taylor, football player. Charles Bennett, football player. Amanda Rigetti, actress. Janelle Esselin, comic book editor and writer. Kyle, do you know who Janelle is?
I'm not familiar with her work, actually.
Okay. Jamie Chung, actress and reality star. Sam Jones III, actor.
Love
Megan
him.
Boone. What's that?
Love him. Smallville. Love him.
Yep.
Nice guy.
He's had an interesting career, to say the least.
Megan Boone, actress, and Jay Cutler, Mr. Grimace football player. In May, Adrian Palicki, actress. Of course, Friday Night Lights and the Orville. Gabourey Sidibe, actress. Matt Leinart, football player. Amber Tamlin, actress. Jason Blair, actor. Michaela McManus, actress. Also on
the Orville.
The Orville. Thank you very much. June, Brooke White, the singer. Adam Henderson, actor. Lily Sobieski, actress. Olivia Hack, actress and voice actress. Macklemore, the rapper. And Edward Snowden, government whistleblower, also born in June. These are making me feel old. We also had some deaths in 1983, guys. One of my favorite heroes, cartoonist, creator of Tintin, Hergé, passed away, died March 3rd. Former Pete Farndon, former English bassist and founding member of the rock band The Pretenders, passed away. He died April 14th. And legendary actor Buster Crabbe in Tarzan, Flash Gordon, and Buck Rogers passed away. Muddy Waters, famous blues guitarist, musician, he passed away, died April 30th. And one of the most famous boxers of all time, Jack Dempsey, he passed away May 31st. All right, guys. We have some 1983 technology. Here we go. I found this newspaper ad. I just loved it. I thought it looked really cool. Totally 80s outfits here. This was the Minolta Disc 7. Transform phone cameras into fine cameras. Minolta cameras are the only auto flash disc cameras created by Minolta for being the big 5 camera makers in Japan. The ones with all glass lens with 2 settings, one for crisper, closer close-ups. The Disc 7 even has a unique framing mirror, so you're sure who's in the picture. Covered by a full 5-year guarantee by Minolta Disc Camera, the sophisticated way to snap the party spirit. I remember these were a quick thing, guys. Never owned one. Did you, Kyle?
I never owned one, but I remember what a big deal everybody made about the disc films.
Yes.
And how much process
it was like a round disc thing, right?
Yeah, it was a round disc. But how much of a pain they were to develop the pictures off of.
Yeah, our local, you remember the little Fox boxes that were in the middle of the parking lots? You know, it was like a 12 by 12 foot square box where you drop off your film. I remember that being more, I had one of these, but not until later. But I remember later on, they charged like an extra $2 or $3 to develop those circles because they were just so much of a pain in the butt.
The photomat booth in the parking lot you just drove up to? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
All right, guys, I'm still rocking these today. The CDs are brought into America. CD-ROM, able to hold 550 megabytes of pre-recorded data. CD-ROMs grow out of music compact disc. The CD was developed by Sony and Philips in 1982 for distributing music. The first general interest CD-ROM product released after Philips and Sony announced the CD-ROM format in 1984 was Grolier's Electronic Encyclopedia, which came out in 1985. The 9 million words in the encyclopedia only took up 12% of available space. That same year, computer and electronic companies worked together to set a standard for the discs so many computers would be able to access the information. It took over the market in 83, guys, and 83 sales was 400,000, 84 sales was 6 million, 1985 sales was 13 million. The wife uses cassette tapes to communicate to the blind man. Within a couple of years, they may be communicating differently. I don't know why that is on here. That's so interesting. But I did contribute to this in the early 2000s as I replenished my hair metal collection. So you might want to add another 1 million CDs sold to that.
I did too. I did the same thing. Like right around 2003 or 4, I looked up. I was like, I don't have anything with Aquanet or cod pieces at all. And I bought everything from Cinderella and Bon Jovi through to Alice Cooper and like everything.
Nice.
White Lion, all the old stuff. Yeah.
Next, we have a couple things here. The Compact Portable, advertised as the first 100% IBM PC compatible computer. The Compact Portable can run the same software as the IBM PC. With the success of the clone, Compact recorded first-year sales of 111 million, the most ever by an American business in a single year. The success of the Portable inspired many early IBM-compatible computers. Compact licensed the MS-DOS operating system from Microsoft and legally reversed engineer IBM's BIOS software. The Compact successful launched a market for IBM-compatible computers that by 1996 had achieved an 83% share of personal computer market. Kyle, you know I go with you the computers. Did you have this?
I did not have this. What I laugh about, though, is as we cover these computers from the early 80s, the definition of portable was much different in the 90s.
This is true. This is very, very true. Yes. We also had introduced the Road to Point Rays. Lucasfilm produces the Road to Point Rays, one of the most significant static images in the history of computer graphics. The Road to Point Rays is one of Lucasfilm's most important early projects. And this is the image on the right that you guys are seeing here. Begun in 1983, Rob Cook directed the image and conceived the scene, while Alvy Ray Smith, Lauren Carpenter, Tom Porter, Bill Reeves, and David Saleson provided various elements, including shading, hidden surface routines, and fractals. The single image, with Smith has described as a one-frame movie, took a month to render and was eventually displayed at the Computer Museum in Boston. I think we can do this ourselves now on our iPhones. I'm just saying.
Kevin, there's part of me, since this is Time Warp, there's part of me that wonders, should we take the Time Warp to go back and stop this in history, because it might actually prevent the special editions of the original trilogy ever coming out.
Hey. There will be no special edition trilogy slamming. I don't mind them. All right, guys. Vintage 1983 original parts. Guys, we've got some toys and products. Now, I did throw in a toy for products introduced in 1983 because it was a big deal. 83 was the first year of the GoBots franchise released by Tonka in North America. Kyle?
Yeah.
You and I kind of butt heads when it comes to these. I'm a fan of these.
Yeah, because for the more simple-minded people who couldn't figure out how to transform their Transformers.
I wouldn't have put it this way, but you're absolutely right.
The sad part of this is that really the GoBots were just, okay, we have the Transformers mini spies, and we're going to just create a whole bunch more of them. But when the cartoon came out and the animation was so bad on the Hanna-Barbera GoBots cartoon, it kind of was a death seal for the product in the franchise.
I will not debate the cartoon. I like the GoBots for two reasons. First, yes, they were easier to transform, but I like them as cars. I thought they made really cool car designs, and the fact that you can, just pull a couple things and you got the arms and the legs made me happy. So, there you go.
Kevin, just settle this conversation real quick. I have two words that trump GoBots.
Yeah, what's
Optimus Prime.
I don't know. Lacey, you GoBots person?
I was 10, and this was the early 80s when children did not get boy child toys.
Gotcha.
I think I had one friend whose older brother might have had some GoBots or Transformers or whatever. But yeah, I didn't really have access to most of this stuff.
Kyle, you are right. Optimus Prime does trump. Just saying. All right, guys. I remember this. This was a big deal. Caffeine-free Coca-Cola was introduced in 1983 as a caffeine-free variant of Coca-Cola. It was introduced to compete against Pepsi-Free, which is now called caffeine-free Pepsi, the diet variant. Caffeine-free Diet Coke was the first variant of Diet Coke and was introduced. 1 year in 1984, 1 year after the regular Coke version. In 2013, caffeine-free Coca-Cola Zero was introduced in America. So, Kyle.
And it's only taken them about 40 years to get the flavor even halfway drinkable.
I was like, what's the point? I want caffeine and sugar in my soda, but that was the thing. Okay, guys, one of the most finest foods of all time was introduced in 1983, and that is chicken McNuggets. Are the type of chicken nuggets sold at international fast food restaurant chain McDonald's. They consist of small pieces of reconstituted boneless chicken meat that have been battered and deep fried. Chicken McNuggets were conceived by Keystone Foods in the late 1970s, introduced in the markets in 1981. The nuggets were made available worldwide by 1983 after correcting a supply issue. The formula was changed in 2016 to remove artificial preservatives and improve the nutritional value, thus sending kids into a frenzy of, I want my chicken nuggies. Or was that Baby Yoda? Can't remember.
That was Grogu. That's all Grogu.
Oh, it was Grogu, yes.
But what we are in a frenzy of, Kevin, is we want our Szechuan sauce.
Szechuan sauce, okay. Lacey, Nugget fan?
Bell, boot, bone, and balls, babe. There you go.
Nice.
When you got a 4-piece, you got a bell, a ball, a boot, bell, a ball, a boot, and a bone. Yeah.
No,
there was a lot of boots.
Those are the 4 shapes.
Yeah. All I know is that there was many a nights, especially in high school and college, where it was the late night 20-pack, buy 3 or 4 20-packs of McNuggets, and that was get you through cram sessions if you couldn't get the pizza.
Well, wait a minute. Are you telling me that there's actual shapes by design for the nuggets, Lacey? That just went over my head and it hit me right in the back of the head.
There's a circle. It's a ball. There's a bell it looks like a bell. There's a bone that kind of has the top and the kind of does like that. And then there's a boot, the one that has like the little hook on the bottom. Yeah.
I just found that out. Did not know that. I just
you were 10
noticed
years old.
I just noticed that. Why is there always a boots in there? Why do they look like boots?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably because I inhale them too fast that I didn't really notice that. I did not know that. That's okay.
Also,
wait.
The best thing about it is that with McDonald's nuggets, they have the hot mustard instead of honey mustard. Everybody else had honey mustard. McDonald's had hot mustard. And if you got a hot mustard and a honey, like just a plain honey that they use for their, tea, and mix them together, it's a way better honey mustard than anybody else.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Look, Lacey just hit the important question, Kevin. What was your dipping sauce of choice?
Oh.
Mine was always sweet and sour. Love sweet and sour. Still do.
It's sweet and sour barbecue. When they would bring the Szechuan, thanks to Rick and Morty, they brought it back a couple of times.
Because when I was like getting that sweet and sour, I was like, I was licking the stuff out of that. I love that stuff. It's so dangerous. Anyway. All right, guys. Next, we've got Totally Tubular 80s Toys. Yeah. All right, guys. We got some fun ones here. We've got the Glamour Gals Ocean Queen boat playset, manufactured Kenner, $70. Glamour Gals Ocean Queen luxury cruise ship includes 2 dolls. The ship has 3 decks and 7 beautifully furnished cabins with portholes. Level operated elevator carries up to 6 dolls. There is a radar communications antenna on the observation deck rails, and emergency lifeboat with ropes and pulleys. We also have the glowworm. Oh, the glowworm. Remember that? $10 it costs you. The huggable glowworm glimmers with happiness every time toddlers lovingly squeeze his cuddly tummy. Children never need to be afraid of the dark. That was the key.
Quick question.
Smiling
Kevin.
glowworm makes the perfect nightlight or carry-round companion. Yes, Kyle.
Was the Glamour Gals Ocean Queen the prototype for the USS Flag?
I think it was, and if I had a sister sibling, it would have been invaded by my G.I. Joes and my Star Wars toys. So yes, definitely. Also, we have the Hot Wheels Spiral Speedway from Mattel, $25. Speedway has an elevated spiral track that climbs to be the height of 1.5 feet to provide excitement of vertical racing, including the Hot Ones Hot Bird and White Porsche Power Wheels booster starting gate access, even a working grease track. Oh, this sounds so cool. I wish I would have had this, Kyle.
Quick question. Lacey, yeah, you might even be able to answer in on this too. Better, cooler tracks, Hot Wheels or classic slot car tracks?
Ooh, I like the classic slot car stuff because, again, I didn't have, it was like there was always like boy toys and girl toys, right? But my dad had old stuff, right? So that was just stuff that was in the attic that we could pull down and play with. So, yeah. But
Well, I preferred whatever one couldn't be pulled apart to use as a spanking device.
So in other words, Kevin was a slot car guy.
Yes. Next is the Playhouse tent for $12. Your own house for indoor, outdoors, open windows and door with a flap for ventilation. It has an interlocking plastic tubular frame with vinyl cover. Great for those little sleepovers, I would assume. And also we had the little sweetheart car. $60. Heart-shaped window and a removable canopy lets the sun shine through. Hood lifts up for storage. Comes with chrome squeeze bulb, horn, and adjustable pedals. Aww. Kyle, you still have that, right?
Just like you still have the Playhouse tent in your backyard for your nightly sleepovers.
Hey, sometimes you got to feel it. All right, guys. Next, we have 1983 music news. April 5th, U.S. Interior Secretary James G. Watt causes controversy when he effectively bans the Beach Boys. How do you ban the Beach Boys? From a return performance at the 4th of July festivals in Washington, announcing that Wayne Newton would perform instead. Watt claims the rock band attract the wrong element. Is he not listening to Ozzy? I don't know. The same week, President Reagan himself, an avowed Beach Boy fan, presents Watt with a plaster foot with a hole in it. Get it? Because he shot himself in the foot saying that.
Nothing worse than that surfer culture. I mean, that just brought down American society like you wouldn't believe.
April 11th, Dave Mustaine is fired from Metallica as the band is set to begin recording its debut album. He was replaced by Kirk Hammett. Dave Mustaine did all right, though. Went on to head Megadeth, so yeah. April 9th, David Bowie achieves his 4th UK #1 single, Let's Dance. His first album since parting ways with RCA Records and his 15th studio album overall. With its deliberate shift to mainstream dance rock, it would become Bowie's biggest commercial success at just over 10 million copies sold worldwide. Bowie, however, would experience a critical downturn for the next 10 years as a result of his perceived obligation to continue appealing to fans of the album. And I think he did all right. May 16th, Motown 25th special airs on NBC, celebrating a quarter century of Motown records. Michael Jackson unveils his moonwalk dance move during a performance of Billie Jean. Watch, I'm going to do the moonwalk real quick.
Yeah, no.
You can't see my feet, but I'm doing it really, really good right now. Really good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
We've got to make sure we mention the importance of this Motown 25 special, because this is still to this day considered one of the greatest music specials of all time.
Everyone remembers the dance, though, dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Huge. It kind of announced to Michael Jackson to everyone else. Obviously, he was doing quite well, but his stardom just blew up after this. It was huge, absolutely huge. May 16th, May 18th through June 4th, the second US Festival is held at Glen Helen Park in California. I remember these guys. Maybe one of the first real boy bands. June 18th through 19th, 83, Menudo makes their second visit to New York. The band plays for 4 shows at Madison Square Garden, and all 80,000 tickets sell out within 3 days for going on sale. Kyle, I know you were afraid that you felt bad you didn't get your tickets, but how are your Menudo posters hanging inside your parents' house? How's that faring?
Well, I got them all recently laminated, so they're well protected. But come on, Menudo was the start. They were the gate key opener to all things featured, including New Kids on the Block, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, all that. It really, truly, the modern start of it was Menudo. Let's be honest.
Lacey? you being at that age, I remember a lot of kids your age knowing who they were. Was that on your radar at all? Oh, Lacey, you're muted.
You're muted, Lacey.
I was 10. I had a bicycle.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Not even.
All right, guys.
Wait. Lacey's answer for everything on this podcast going forward is I was 10.
Well,
10.
but
Nice.
because,
History,
We got it.
It's a pain in the butt.
All right, guys, we're going to get into the top 100 Billboard Hot 100 songs in 1983. And of course, we have a small section of about 25 here we'd like to cover. Number 75, Hot Girls in Love by Loverboy. I'm Still Standing by Elton John. My Love by Lionel Richie. Heart to Heart by Kenny Loggins. Straight from the Heart by Bryan Adams. All Right by Christopher Cross. I Won't Hold You Back by Toto. You Want to Be Starting Something by Michael Jackson. Family Man by Hall & Oates. Making Love Out of Nothing at All by Air Supply. The Other Guy, Little River Band. Promises, Promises, Naked Eyes. Come Dancing by the Kinks. China Girl by David Bowie. How Am I Supposed to Live Without You by Laura Branigan. Don't Let It In by Styx. Solitaire by Laura Branigan. She's a Beauty by the Tubes. Affair of the Heart by Rick Springfield. Gloria by Laura Branigan. Is There Something I Should Know by Duran Duran. Overkill by Men at Work. Our House by Madness. Rock the Casbah by The Clash. Goody Two Shoes by Adam Ant. And since I have become somewhat of an expert of yacht rock as of recently, a lot of these songs are considered yacht rock songs. Lacey, give me a few of your favorites off this group.
You're muted again, Lacey.
Lacey, can't hear you.
Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat, so I'm trying to keep it on mute.
Gotcha. Appreciate it.
I'm Still Standing and Goody Two Shoes are probably my two favorites out of this list.
Gotcha. Kyle, yourself.
Okay,
Those
so
are good ones. By the way, Lacey, those are good ones.
Yeah, there's a few here. My Love was a huge hit for Lionel Richie. I'm looking too at Come Dancing. Always had that little hook to it that just pulled you in. She's a Beauty by the Tubes. I've always been a huge fan of that song. She's One in a Million. I mean, come on. Gloria was huge. Gloria was just like constant radio play. And of course, too, How Am I Supposed to Live Without You, which became one of the most popular songs to cover. And I think, what was it, Michael Bolton, who really probably a lot of people consider him singing the definitive version of that song. And
Yeah.
Come on, Kevin, you got to get right. If you're going to say Our House, you have to add In the Middle of Our Street.
This is true. A few of my favorites, like you mentioned, Kyle, She's a Beauty is probably one of my favorites on this group here. The Tubes, love that song. I'm a guilty pleasure is Hot Girls in Love by Loverboy, and I'm Still Standing by Elton John. One of my favorites on this one as well. Great songs. All right, guys, let's get into a little bit of TV here. We're talking about the top 30 shows of primetime TV in 1983, and we got a bunch here that I want to, or a bundle of very popular shows I want to get you guys' thoughts on. First of all, at number 24 from that list, Facts of Life. 23, Newhart, and sharing at number one, at 21, we have Monday Night Football, and then we have the NBC Monday Night Movie. And then at 20, Scarecrow and Mrs. King. 19, The Jeffersons. And at 18, Riptide. And at number 17, Love Boat. Oh, love that theme. Guys, I want to get your thoughts on this group here. What were some of your favorites? And why have I never seen an episode of Scarecrow and Mrs. King? I'm going to go to you, Lacey. What were some of your favorites on here?
Okay, I loved Riptide. Riptide was amazing. It came on right after Simon and Simon, and it was delightful.
Didn't they do a crossover?
Yeah,
I think they did.
I don't remember because I usually lost the last 10 minutes of it because it was kind of past my bedtime. But I will say I recently did a full rewatch of Scarecrow and Mrs. King, and it is
Oh wow,
by far the least feminist. Like, it is so bad. Like, it's so bad. It's about a housewife and a spy, and like every female is called like sweetheart and honey, and people get patted on the butts, and like, and the first like 10 episodes, it was like they figured out all of the, it was, oh my gosh, she had to like solve a mystery by baking something or taking a photo or sewing something, and it's so ridiculous. I mean, like she had to be like a model once, and then she had to be
But it was Kate Jackson.
yes, and I loved it back in the day, but it is brutal to watch it now. Like, I don't think you would even enjoy it at this point. I love Bruce Boxleitner.
So it's severely dated, is what you're saying.
It is so dated. It is. It's awful. It's almost as bad as like the number of times Scully was abducted in the first season of X-Files.
Oh my god!
Like, it's that bad.
Kyle, you got a favorite out of this?
There's a couple things here. You take the good, you take them bad, you take them both in there. You have the facts of life.
Yeah,
you never go wrong with the facts of life. This is a couple years before Clooney made his triumphant debut on the facts of life, but we'll get to that in a couple years. But Riptide, Joe Penny, that was awesome. But Kevin, come on, you knew you made it in Hollywood when you were asked to be on the Love Boat. That you knew you were making it in Hollywood if you were asked to take a cruise on the Love Boat.
The Love Boat was such a great formula because it always usually ended in happiness, you know, and it was a great vessel to get your guest stars from other shows and TV personalities, sports personalities to come in and knock it out of the park, hopefully. And also maybe have a relationship with someone in the crew, you know. And, you know, the crew was great. And it was just a great idea. I loved it as well. We watched it as much as we could. So, yeah, one of my favorites as well. All right, guys, we have some TV debuting during this time of the year in 1983. Some shows not too sure about. Some I remember. Baby Makes 5 came out on ABC in April. Goodnight Beantown. Zorro and Son, Casablanca, Bear Essence, Good Morning Mickey, the Disney Channel, Welcome to Pooh Corner. In May, we had Star Search going into syndication, show called Buffalo Bill, and I believe this was a soap opera. June Loving came out on ABC. Anybody remember any of these, Kyle?
Oh, I remember Star Search going into syndication because Star Search for a while was a pretty big deal. And I actually remember Welcome to Pooh Corner because of being that age, and it was one of the few things that it played constantly on the Disney Channel when the Disney Channel.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I'm remembering too, is Welcome to Pooh Corner. Like you were starting to say that, and I kind of like drifted off a little bit, like, oh yeah.
We had some shows ending in 83 during this time of the year too. The TV show Hitman, which I think only lasted one season, Just Men, and Gloria, Ace Crawford, Private Eye, Baby Makes 5 ended. That didn't last long. Laverne and Shirley from 1976 finally ended. Wizards and Warriors at 83 ended. Joni Loves Chachi ended from 82. Kyle?
Time out. I just have to say I have some breaking news because I do have a new neighbor in the town I live in. Scott Baio moved into Bradenton, Florida over the weekend.
Get out of town. No, not really, but wow. Are you serious?
Yes,
cool.
They made like a big article on it in the local paper. It was hilarious.
You have a job to get him on the podcast here, Kyle.
Yeah, let me find his compound.
TV show Bring 'Em Back Alive ended in June. Tales of the Gold Monkey, Love Sydney, Small Fry, Second City Television, the SCTV network ended. I remember watching several of those. So I enjoyed that. It didn't last very long. A show called The Crystal Cube. Chips finally ended from 77 premiere, and Taxi ended from 1978. Kyle.
TV was never the same once Poncherella was off our screens.
I know. Such a good show. All these great theme shows are going through my head right now, and that was one of them. We had some celebrity film debuts. We're going to mention a few at a time that came out in 83. Chris Elliott in Leanna, Andy Garcia in Blue Skies Again, Mary Pat Gleason in Easy Money, Crispin Glover, My Tutor, Kelsey Grammer in War Games, Graham Greene in Running Brave, David Allen Greer in Streamers, Lucas Haas in Testament, Tess Harper in Tender Mercies, Nicole Kidman in Bush Christmas, Jane Krakowski in National Lampoon's Vacation, Maurice LaMarche in Rock and Rule, Ray Liotta in The Lonely Lady, Rob Lowe in The Outsiders, and Virginia Madsen in The Class. Anybody heard of any of these guys?
You lost me. Everything went blank after you said Virginia Madsen.
All right, guys. This is where we get into the movies. Let's go ahead and discuss the movies of 1983 in April. 1983's vintage, guys. Don't know if you know that, but here we go. The first one we are discussing is Screwballs. As I mentioned, guys, a lot of sex comedies in this era. And yes, I have a copy of Screwballs right here. Okay. Guys, I got to tell you, this movie's really bad. Not good at all. And of course, the nuts who always score. I want to say the high school is named after someone with the, I think it's B and J. So put that together. Frolicking youth comedy about zany high school students set in the 1960s. Raphael Zelinsky and a bunch of people I do not know did this film. Kyle, you are going to be our trivia master. What have you got for Screwballs?
Okay, so Linda Shane not only co-wrote the scripts and acts in the movie as Bootsy Goodhead, but also posed as a girl on the film's poster as well.
Yep, this one right here.
Yeah,
right there.
Obviously, this movie has often been compared to earlier Canadian raunchy comedy Porky's in 1981, of which it is considered a knockoff. I'm adding a very, very, very poor knockoff.
Yes.
The movie's bright color scheme was inspired by the Archie comic strip. Director Raphael Zelinsky approached the film like it was a live-action cartoon. Yeah. But Kevin, this movie was just so excellent. We didn't get not one, but two sequels to Screwballs. Screwballs 2 in 1985 and Screwball Hotel in 1988.
Now, this was a type of film that kind of was inspired by Porky's, obviously, as I mentioned in the trivia here, Kyle and Lacey. But this one just missed the mark of trying to have some type of character and something, because you're not really rooting for any of the characters. And, you know, yes, there's your nudity in it and typical high school sex comedy romp, but this just wasn't good. There is the next one I'll talk about that actually I liked and thought was good, but this wasn't good at all. Anybody else seen this?
I remember trying to watch it and couldn't get through it. And I think it's one of those things to where the problem is the film that kicked us off set the bar so high. There were so many films that just fell so far beneath trying to match it.
Lacey, I'm going to be getting rid of my DVD copy. That's how I feel about it. How do you feel about Screwballs?
I will say it's one thing to have a teen comedy that has the occasional like flash of nudity here and there or whatever, but this is one of those ones where you can tell they were struggling to find any sort of action or dialogue between someone having to take off her top or a button popping open or something. It's just so bad.
Yeah, it is.
So bad. The plot was boobs.
What's interesting is this movie made just over $2 million. I don't know if it made its money back. I don't have a budget on this, but I think you could tell the popularity of these films by how much money that they brought in. But this was obviously not a direct to video because it wasn't in the theaters, but did very well, of course, when people, were of an impressionable age and wanted to see, a sex comedy type thing. And I remember seeing
a sex comedy. They wanted to see a freeze frame so they could take 5 minutes to themselves.
That's very, very, very accurate.
That's all this movie was.
All right, guys. The next film didn't make quite as much money, but I actually like this one. This is called Losin It. And this one is very famous because this was director Curtis Hanson, but starred Tom Cruise, Jackie Earle Haley, and John Stockwell. Set in 1965, four rowdy teenager guys travel to Tijuana, Mexico for a night of partying when they are joined by a heartbroken housewife who is in town seeking a quick divorce. Let's see what else I got here. I did want to mention, too, that when I was watching this film, I was reminded of my only visit to Mexico in Tijuana back in the early 2000s. And I have no reason to ever go back. Not because I can't go back. I just don't want to. Did enjoy myself. And it's very dirty downtown there as well. Kyle, please give us some trivia on Losin It.
The movie was a low-budget, non-union film. They used at least 10 crew members as actors, and many others didn't want their names on the credits. I wonder why. They also hired a lot of local people from Calexico, California, to be extras, and a few were put in as principals with lines. Kevin, I got to ask you, really, Calexico?
It's actually Calico, I think it is.
Oh, Calico? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Calico. I could be wrong, but I remember hearing Calico.
Okay. But okay, so here we go, though. Because now we know the true power of Kelly Leak. Because reportedly, Tom Cruise said in an interview with Playboy magazine that he did this movie because of Jackie Earle Haley. Kelly Leak tops them all when it comes to the power of coolness, because even the great Tom Cruise must bow down to Kelly Leak.
Yes.
Calexico is a small town in the border of California.
Gotcha.
Okay. Actor John P. Navin Jr., who played Wendell, was the first person through the front door in the very first episode of Cheers, which also starred Shelley Long.
I did want to mention real quick before the next trivia you do, Kyle, is that Shelley Long is the housewife that they meet up with in this film. And she was very charming. It was good to see her in a different role, and they kind of have some adventures together.
Most importantly about this movie, though, it is the true prequel to Top Gun. Because
yeah, buddy.
Members Tom Cruise, John Stockwell, and Rick Rossovich worked together again a few years later on for Top Gun in 1986. So now we know what Maverick and Slider were doing pre-U.S. Navy days.
Yes, and they probably had their shirts off as well. This movie made just over $1 million. Lacey, your thoughts on Losin It? Am I the only one that likes this movie?
No, this one's great. This is a road trip movie. It's a teen comedy or whatever, and there's, it's got racy content, but it's not it's just miles ahead of Screwballs.
Yeah, Kyle.
It's one of those movies. Yeah, I agree. It's miles ahead of Screwballs. It's still not a great movie, more because of the production value of it. But it is. I think it has a very unique place in Hollywood history when you consider who is in this movie. Anytime you get anything early Tom Cruise before he was Tom Cruise, you've got to pay attention to it.
What I find interesting about these films that we just discussed and several other ones is the time frame they take place in. Like Porky's and all these always take place in the 50s and the 60s. And I don't know if it's because the creators and the directors are building this on their own experience during those times, and now they're making films. Maybe, but I just thought why there was a concentration of these films during these times. What do you think, Lacey?
I think it has to do with setting something raunchy in a pure environment. Because when you think of the 50s, you think Donna Reed and Leave It to Beaver and things like that. You don't think about, you think of the housewife that has the dinner on the table when the husband walks home and puts his hat on them. That's the thing. So you take that and you completely juxtapose it with horny teenagers.
Yeah.
Let's face it, they've always existed. They had to exist at during the 50s. They didn't just stop being horny teenagers in the 50s. But
good point.
You juxtapose that and it makes for more funny, more comedy, I think.
Yeah, that makes good sense. All right, guys. Next, we had a film I have yet to see. I couldn't find it streaming anywhere. Called Better Late Than Never, comedy. Only made $25,000 in the theater. Tagline is, meet two outrageous guys having the time of their lives on the Riviera. To me, this kind of feels like an early prequel to Grumpy Old Man, maybe. I don't know. But it's directed by Brian Forbes, stars David Niven, Art Carney, and Maggie Smith. Much of it's about two men who show up claiming to be the grandfather of a child heiress. Kyle, give us some trivia and we'll talk about it.
Well, first and foremost, I'm thinking that any Harry Potter fan, after watching this movie, might see Maggie Smith or Professor McGonagall in a whole new light.
This is very true.
Much of the filming of this movie took place in Monte Carlo, which was not far from where David Nevin's then villa home called the La Fleur du Camp Mansion, located in the St. John Cap Ferrat millionaire belt region where the rich lived. I feel like I shouldn't even be spouting those words because I'm nowhere even in that financial zone. But the French Riviera house is where Niven resided during the final years of his life. This movie was shot close to Niven's house due to his failing health. Niven and Art Carney served in World War II and fought in France. Niven had become a colonel by the D-Day invasion and participated in that mission. Niven was the first Hollywood star to volunteer for World War II. And according to Brian Forbes, it was during this shooting of this movie in 1981 that David Niven first began to show signs of motor neuron disease, which would claim his life in 1983.
So I guess that's probably what was one of his last projects, dear David Niven. I'm going to go to you, Lacey. Did you see this film?
Yes, I definitely remember seeing this film. It was super cute. It was really funny. I'm sure like the racy stuff kind of went over my head, but let's not forget that the woman in that poster, that's Catherine Hicks. She was the mom from Seventh Heaven.
Oh my God. That's
okay.
Right.
that is like yeah. Anyway, and it's kind of I would say if you were going to go prequel to something, I would say almost Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
That's
because these two men show up to claim that they're the long lost grandfather of this like 10 or 12-year-old girl who is an heiress. And so Maggie Smith is the, like the custodian or the I don't know, Mary Poppins, of it all. And it's just kind of David Niven was so good at just doing those kind of dropped comedy lines where he would just drop humor.
It kind of feels like a Dirty Rotten Scoundrels type thing too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like a Dirty Rotten Scoundrels ish. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did you see it, out of curiosity?
Oh gosh, it's been a million years. It was on like maybe TNT at 1 o'clock in the morning or something.
Well, maybe we should use our time machine and go back and watch it because I don't know where this is streaming. I'll try to find it. And just so you guys know, I try to find this stuff free if I can, unless I'm compelled to think maybe this is a movie I might want to keep. I might, purchase it, but I purchased Screwballs and I'm kind of regretting that. So, Kyle, know anything about this? Seen it? No.
I have not seen it, so I'm kind of with you. And it's at this point, I think it's one of those movies that's kind of lost in the ether.
Lacey, do you recommend it? Should I see it?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of one of those cute, almost Disney live action kind of things. It kind of feels like the old school stuff with Sidney Poitier and doing the comedies and stuff. It's definitely of its age, but it's funny if you can find it.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, guys. Next one is a Chuck Norris film that I really like. I think it's actually one of his most underrated films. Lone Wolf McQuade made just over $12 million. And as the poster says, the mad dog criminal, the lone wolf lawman, the ultimate showdown. After helping the local police with some horse thieves, a Texas Ranger aims at the drug lord with arms trade as well. They're interested in the same woman and both into martial arts. Directed by Steve Carver. Chuck Norris, of course, starring David Carradine as our villain and the lovely Barbara Carrera. I just want to go on and say real quick, Kyle, I just watched this, and man, this movie's good. I'll get into more of it in a second, but I know you've got some trivia.
I've got some trivia, but I just got to add this to it, too. I believe this movie is the true birth of all the memes that we have seen over the last 10 years regarding Chuck Norris.
Yes, I think you're right.
This is fun because when asked to comment on David Carradine's actual martial arts skills, Chuck Norris opinioned, David Carradine is every bit as good a martial artist as I am an actor. Yeah. There were no stunt doubles used for the final fight scene between McQuade and Wilkes. Chuck Norris and David Carradine instead insisted to do the scene themselves despite the protests of the producers, but director Steve Carver insisted as well. But here's the big one, and I think this is the most important one because this is a totally different movie if this were to have come to be. According to the producers, had Bruce Lee been alive at the time, he would have been offered the part that eventually went to David Carradine. Had Lee taken the part, the producers would have billed the film as the rematch of the century.
Oh, wow. That would have been a lot more interesting.
Rematch meaning were they in? Was Norris in a movie with Bruce Lee before?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
What is it?
Enter the Dragon?
Yeah, Enter the Dragon.
It's Norris in Enter the Dragon. Okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
his chest is all hairy. It's awesome. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I remember rewatching. I'd seen this years and years ago, forgot about it, rewatched it going, man, this thing is good. And this is the iconic lone wolf type movie. I mean, it's in the title, basically. And it's the guy who wants to work alone, no partners, we saw that, I think, in almost like every Dirty Harry film. Of course, it goes on with Rambo, all these guys that just want to take out all the bad guys. And when I look at my favorite Chuck Norris films, I have two favorite ones. Three, sort of. I'll just say top three. Number one is Invasion USA. Love Invasion USA. This one follows close second, Lone Wolf McQuade. And because he's just so good in this when he takes out bad guys. And of course, the fight with David Carradine.
And then Sidekicks.
What?
And then Sidekicks is the third favorite?
No. Oh, crap. It's the one where he's, I'm forgetting the name now. It's the one where he's a police officer and he goes up against corrupt police officers in Chicago. Oh, God, I'm forgetting the name. I'll come across that one later, though. But I absolutely really good, gritty film. I love that this is kind of like, it's, he goes and does the lone wolf thing, of course, in Invasion USA. But there's just something cool and gritty about this. And of course, he's a Texas Ranger.
Yeah. Later inspiration. Just saying.
Later inspiration. Kyle,
yeah.
Your thoughts on Chuck Norris here?
Okay. First of all, the only thing tougher than Chuck Norris in this film is Chuck Norris's truck. Dude gets buried alive in his truck, gets out in his truck, walks out, probably pops the warmest beer of ever imagined, and takes a drink of it. But this is the movie, I think, for a lot of people who know Chuck Norris. This is the first one they kind of come to because it's just the name alone, Lone Wolf McQuade. It's there. I think it's actually the one that really put him to a different level of stardom, which really set off his full action career at this point. And let's be honest here, Hollywood really never liked David Carradine that much. I've always had that feeling. He was not exactly well liked here. Go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say the movie I was thinking it was Code of Silence.
Okay, yeah.
And Delta Force is a good movie too. Yeah. That is a fun movie, but just those three are my personal favorites.
Missing in Action as well.
Yeah, Missing in Action, a lone wolf type film as well. I did want to mention too that this co-stars Robert Beltran as the guy that's assigned to him. Of course, we know him as Chakotay in Voyager, but I just watched him in the first episode of Street Hawk because my lovely wife and I watched a film starring Rex Smith, and she wanted to see some other Rex Smith stuff, and he was more known probably by guys as Street Hawk. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. Lacey, your thoughts? Have you seen Lone Wolf McQuade?
Chuck Norris is another one of those ones where I've seen a ton of his movies just on, TBS or TNT, kind of late night over the years. They all kind of blend together. I always love what he does. I just can't tell you when I last saw this. I couldn't pick it apart. Yeah.
Kyle?
Very important question for you, Kevin. Better Barbara Carrera performance, this or Condor Man?
Oh, Condor Man. Oh my God, Condor Man. Yes. And I think she was a Bond girl too, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was a Bond girl.
But she was so much better in Condor Man. Oh my God. no contest. Good question. All right, guys. Next one, I have interesting thoughts on here. We have Rock and Roll. All right. And this is basically an animated film that uses current and past popular rock stars as the kind of fuel to really push this film. The Beauty, the Beast, the Beat, Rock and Roll. Angel, a member of a punk rock band of an apocalyptic future, is kidnapped by Mock, a legendary super rocker obsessed with a dark experiment. Mock plans to use Angel's voice to summon a demon from another dimension. The rest of the band follows Mock to Nuke York. Yes, I said that right. Nuke York, in attempt to get her back. Director Clive Smith. Stars John Frank, Paul Lamatt, Greg Salata. Those are the voices. And of course, there's a lot of rock stars attached to this as well that use their voices to sing some of these original songs. Kyle, give us some trivia.
Okay, I got to give these guys credit because they intended to swing for the fences, but budgetary restraints on the other hand, because they tried to get David Bowie, Tim Curry, Michael Jackson, Mick Jagger, and Sting considered for Mock, but the budget couldn't afford them. Gee, but if you're gonna swing, you might as well swing for the fences.
To clarify real quick too, I just want to mention that the voices were the speaking parts, but then when they sang the songs, that's when the rock stars came in, and you would hear their voices of these recorded songs.
Yeah. This film is the first English-speaking Canadian animated feature film entirely produced in Canada itself. But most importantly, Kevin, this movie has a tie to the Star Wars Holiday Special, because this film company, the film's production company, Nelvana, was responsible for the cult classic 10-minute animated short on the 1978 classic Star Wars The Holiday Special, which featured the first appearance of bounty hunter and fan favorite Boba Fett. I got to add to this, Kevin, is what is interesting is how big Nelvana was a very big company throughout the 80s and the early 90s for producing a lot of animated things. So that was a pretty major animation studio.
Yeah, definitely. And what was fueling this movie was music and songs performed by Cheap Trick, Deborah Harry, Lou Reed, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and Iggy Pop. Now, I just rewatched this. I'll be honest with you guys, I couldn't finish it. I watched this years ago. And I don't like the concept. I don't mind a post-apocalyptic thing, but then it says that this post-apocalyptic thing happened, and then the only thing that survived was like rats and other weird creatures, and then they kind of formed humanoid. So all the people in this are all basically humanoid version of rats and other weird animals. So they don't look humanoid in the face. They all got these weird kind of, animal noses and stuff. And it's just really bad plot. But the weird thing though is watching these people speak, and then when they're performing, you're basically hearing all of these artists that you're already familiar with. So it's disconjointing because you're like, that's Deborah Harry, that's Cheap Trick. And it just, I get the concept, but it would have been better like they did in heavy metal, where they just played the songs in the background and these people did their stuff. I get it. These are rock stars and they're performing. And so that would have been weird, but to me, it just totally threw me off. Kyle, your thoughts?
This is a terrible movie. There's not even a question about this. What's interesting is when you look at this time frame of animated films, obviously adult animation in theaters was probably, at this point, the bar you're looking at was heavy metal. Yeah. And I think this movie tried to be that, but it didn't work out well. And the problem is you really didn't get more heavier animation because everybody was thinking Disney at this time. Yeah. Until we got into what Don Bluth did with The Secret of NIMH, which, yes, while aimed to be a children's movie, that is a very dark animated film. And the animation style on that is so superior to this. This is bad animation, a bad idea that happened to get some actual pretty known rock names in it, which still to this day boggles my mind.
Lacey, have you seen Rock and Roll?
I have not, but the poster that I'm looking at looks like teenage Danny Bonaducci trying to save Fay Ray from Andy Warhol. and that's enough for me to go like maybe, but then like nah, dude.
No,
I gotta give it though. The poster is freaking cool. I wouldn't mind the poster. The poster's awesome. Cool. It sells the movie. But yeah, just not a fan of it. All right, guys. Next we've got Blue Skies again. I'm very curious about this movie. Only made about $46,000 in the theaters. It's a comedy. A woman on a major league team. What does she think this is? A game? A hard-hitting, fast, sure-handed baseball player tries to break into the sport by applying for a spot on a major league team. The only problem is that the player is female, which engenders resistance and resentment among many players and officials. Director is Richard Michaels, stars Larry Hamlin, Mimi Rogers, Kenneth McMillan. I had never heard of this film before I looked this up, guys. Kyle, you got some trivia for us.
Yeah. First of all, I got to say, there's at some point, whether it's on a Time Warp or a Culture Clash, you and I, Kevin, need to have a serious conversation about the career of one Mimi Rogers.
About the career of who?
One Mimi Rogers.
Yeah, that's I don't know.
This movie was her theatrical debut. Who, first major movie with a female Major League Baseball player. One of a late 1970s, early 1980s mini-cycle of films centering around women athletes. The movies include Blue Skies Again, baseball, Golden Girl, athletics, The Miracle of Kathy Miller, just general athletics, Hockey Night, obviously ice hockey, Quarterback Princess, some game called football, Personal Best, the pentathlon, Gregory's Girl, soccer, and Heart Like a Wheel, drag racing. The film's central character, Paula Robin Bartow, whose baseball player position in the film was second base, was a real-life softball player.
You know, I'm looking at Robin Bartow's IMDb, and that's pretty much it for movies.
Yeah.
I guess this was one and done. I kind of want to see this film. It's interesting, but I'm sure it's horribly dated. Lacey, have you seen this?
It is horribly dated, but I will say this. They used to do like once every few months on channel 49 or 46. I know it's been a million years, but it used to run back to back in like a triple feature between Quarterback Princess and Heart Like a Wheel. And so it was kind of like the girls' empowerment day. Like one Saturday every couple of months, they'd throw like girls can play sports on the TV, so that young impressionable girls would know that they too could throw balls and catch balls and race cars. But it was.
Do you recommend it?
With a grain of salt, yes. But it was very much of its time in that's also how they promoted it.
I've always liked Harry Hamlin. Is he good in this?
Harry Hamlin is always good. I love Harry Hamlin. He's great in everything. One of the few horror movies that I'll watch, Fright Night, loved it, love Harry Hamlin.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it was very much advertised as like girl power weekend. It was
Gotcha.
The 80s. Yeah.
All right, next, guys, we've got The Hunger, made almost $5 million in the theater, starring, of course, Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, Susan Sarandon. Poster says, so bizarre, so sensual, so shocking. Directed by Tony Scott. Oh, and we've got some trivia here, Kyle. Give it to us.
David Bowie actually learned to play the cello for his music scenes. That sounds like something David Bowie would do. Tony Scott discovered the rock group Bauhaus in a London nightclub.
Bauhaus.
In a London nightclub, and decided to put them in the movie. David Bowie said of this film after it was made, I must say there's nothing that looks like it on the market, but I'm a bit worried it's just perversely bloody at some points. In an interview with the Daily Beast in late July 2014, Susan Sarandon revealed that she had an affair with David Bowie while the two were working on this film. And despite being about a movie about vampires, the word vampire is never uttered. Gee, there's another movie that I seem to recall that was something that was a
Near Dark. Near Dark never mentions vampire. Well said, Kyle. Also co-starring Cliff DeYoung, who I've always been kind of a fan of, and Dan Hedaya as well. And who else was in here that I remembered? Beth Eilers played young Alice Calvender. And, of course, the iconic band Bauhaus, who I think broke up after this. And John Pankow. Remember him as well. Wasn't John Pankow in Mad About You, Kyle?
Yes, he was.
He was the neighbor. And a young Willem Dafoe, or a younger Willem Dafoe, has a brief cameo in this. So, guys, when I told Erin I was watching this film, because she's a horror fan, and I said, "Oh yeah, I got to watch." And she's here, obviously, and I'm like, "Do you want to watch The Hunger? Because I have it on DVD." She's like, "No." And I said, "Why? It's boring." And this movie's so boring, guys. I gotta be honest, she is so right. okay, if you're a guy, yes, there is a girl on girl scene between Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon. It's sexual. It's interesting. Bowie's not great in this film. There's some interesting shots. It's definitely a Tony Scott early film. You could tell the way that he does, focusing and framing with the actors and stuff. But I got to tell you, not keeping this DVD that I have here. Not a fan of it. What is your thoughts, Lacey?
There was a series. So I saw that this was going to be on the list. And so I ordered it on DVD on Amazon. And what I accidentally got, it's here somewhere. I was going to pull it up. But I accidentally got a series called The Hunger, which apparently is based on the original movie. And I got through like 2 or 3 episodes of it, and I was like, no. I mean, it was very much more about like, hey, let's see if we can bleed on some people and then have some sex. That's not like really my jam. It was kind of one of those like combined, trying to combine like body horror with sexuality, and that's not. While I understand it from the point of view of being a filmmaker and having watched all that kind of stuff, and fine, whatever, I could write you a paper on it, but I don't want to watch it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Kyle, your thoughts on The Hunger?
It gives me the hunger because there's a cure for insomnia with this film. So, yeah. I just got a comment too because I remember the TV series that came out. It was on Showtime, I believe.
God, I don't remember this at all. Yeah.
It was something to where that was at the time when Vampire the Masquerade was starting to get fairly popular, and all of a sudden they were just reaching for any kind of vampire IP they could, and Showtime did that. But this movie, I've never watched it the whole way through. I've never been able to get through it. It's bizarre. Tony Scott was on the good cocaine when he was making this film, obvious.
It's cocaine in the 80s, guys. Yeah.
This is one of those ones. I know it does have a fairly strong cult following, but yeah,
hold on. I have a special guest I want to bring in right here. Aaron, come on in here. I'm gonna let her tell you what she said to me when I was watching this. We're just finishing up The Hunger right now.
See, a cure for insomnia. What did I say?
Look, it was all very like, music video.
Yes. It felt like a music video that went on too long, So, what did I tell you after I watched it?
I don't know.
Boring.
Well, this is true.
It's true.
This is true. It was boring.
I've invited Aaron here because after this next film we're going to talk about, we got a couple that we're definitely going to hit on. So, yeah.
I'm actually curious if Aaron has comments about the next film we're going to talk about.
Oh, you mean because it's like maybe in the horror section, maybe? Okay, so yeah, the next film that
was in the horror section, but it was horrible.
All right, we are discussing Something Wicked This Way Comes, made just under $6 million in the theater. It is a horror film classified. A small American town, a diabolical circus, and its demonic proprietor prey on the townsfolk. Directed by Jack Clayton, starring Jason Robards, Jonathan Pryce, and Diane Ladd. Kyle, you have some trivia for us.
I have some trivia on this, but there's a piece of trivia that I have for this movie because
get out of town.
There is a interesting thing about this film because this movie was produced by Walt Disney Productions.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
This is a Disney movie.
Huh.
This is about the same time you were doing stuff like Dragon Slayer when they did Walt Productions on Dragon Slayer and things like that. When Disney was really kind of getting out there, and a lot of people were like, "This is like one of the weirdest standout Disney films of all time." But some trivia on this too: Stephen King wrote a rejected adaptation. Ray Bradbury first wrote Something Wicked This Way Comes as a screenplay in 1952 after watching Gene Kelly in Singing in the Rain, which Bradbury thought was the greatest musical ever made. Bradbury showed Kelly the screenplay, and Kelly was so impressed that he wanted to make it his next picture. When Kelly shopped the story around to potential backers, however, he was unable to raise the money for the project. It was only after this failure that Bradley rewrote the story as a novel, which was published in 1962. Bradbury dedicated the novel to Kelly. Disney made changes to the film, which writer Ray Bradbury and director Jack Clayton did not intend. Many extra special effects scenes were shot by a second unit director after original production wrapped, and other changes were made before its release. According to the Laserdisc commentary by Bradbury, much of his original intentions for the movie were destroyed.
Jeez, wow. I gotta be honest with you guys. I have never seen this film. I'm gonna go to my lovely wife here. Have you seen this film?
When you say the word Disney,
Disney, yes.
exactly.
Not a fan of it.
Love the title. I love the title. No, I think I started and got bored.
Really?
Yeah, I think I tried.
What about you, Kyle? What'd you think?
It's been a very, very long time since I've seen this because it's actually something a little bit hard to find these days because it's kind of like Disney realized we need to
wait. You mean it's not on Disney Plus right now?
No, it's not on Disney Plus right now. Disney kind of hides this movie. You might have you still might have an easier time finding this than you will Song of the South, but that's a whole different issue. But
isn't it like Needful Things, Stephen King's Needful Things? Which I think Jonathan Price was in it.
Yeah, a bit like that. I just remember a lot. People were upset by it because it was a Disney film and it was very intense for a Disney film. So a lot of people took their kids to see this because all they saw was a Disney film, and people were coming out like horrified because their kids were traumatized.
Not as horrified as Dumbo.
That's true.
Bambi.
Lacey, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I was one of those like traumatized children. I legitimately remember nothing about this movie with the exception of one special effect shot where it's a close up of somebody's hand, like somebody's like grabbing someone's hand to shake it, and like the knuckles split apart.
Yeah.
And it to show like the bone and the muscle and stuff. But it was like and that's the only thing I remember about this movie.
Damn, Disney showing its dark side back then.
It was not something for a 10-year-old, and I was definitely a 10-year-old, and that was not a movie for me.
What's actually amazing to me is that somebody hasn't tried to remake this film.
Why is that amazing to you?
Because first of all, it is a Ray Bradbury story, so you would think somebody would try to do that, and I just wonder if somewhere buried under it there's some Disney rights issues going on or something like that. But this is the kind of movie because the original concept of the story is, I think, something that would sell well and somebody would grab onto right now. So it just kind of, I think it could be a moneymaker in more with some of today's sensibilities and how people see things compared to what they were in the 80s when people just saw Disney and this made initial assumptions. Well, this was also one of the main reasons why Disney kind of founded Touchstone Pictures.
This is true. Yes, R-rated films under another moniker. By the way, you guys aren't selling me on this film, so I'm not going to go out and rush to see it.
I don't know. Now I am. I want to see the knuckle thing.
You want to see the knuckles?
I went through that whole thing on Disney ruined Dumbo ever because I've never actually watched an animated Disney film after Dumbo.
She loves the gore.
No. It traumatized me, and I said I would never watch an animated thing, but that's not animated. But I'm just saying.
All right, guys, let's get into a couple of films here that are going to round this out for April. Let's get into Flashdance. All right, guys. Something happens when she hears the music. It's her freedom. It's her fire. It's her life. Made over $201 million at the box office. A Pittsburgh woman with 2 jobs as a welder and exotic dancer wants to get into ballet school. Directed by Adrian Lyne. Stars Jennifer Beals, Michael Nouri, Lilia Scala. Jennifer Beals, Oh, wait a minute. That's the trivia. Sorry. Okay. All right.
God.
Kyle, give us some trivia first, and then we're going to get into a little backstory here. Some fun we had recently.
Okay. Let me get my heart rate slowed down because Jennifer Beals, first of all. It's a little warm in here. I'm just saying. Jennifer Beals' trend-setting collar sweatshirt came about by accident. The sweatshirt, which Beals brought from home, had shrunk in the wash, and she had to cut the collar off in order to get it over her head. When director Adrian Lyne and costume designer Michael Kaplan saw it at the wardrobe fitting, they both loved it, and Kaplan improved the overall look of the sweatshirt for the actual shoot. Based on the life of construction worker, welder turned dancer Maureen Martyr, Maureen Jahan and Jennifer Beals' body double for the dancing scenes. Jahan was kept hidden from the press because the filmmakers did not want to ruin the illusion. Alex's leap through the air in the audition scene was done by gymnast Sharon Shapiro, and the breakdancing was done by Crazy Legs. Jahan appeared in the music video for Maniac. In 1982, Maureen Martyr, whose life the film is loosely based on, signed an agreement with Paramount releasing it from any claim regarding her life story. In return, she received a check for $2,300. The movie later took in an estimated $200 million worldwide. All I have to say about that is oops.
All right, guys. So as we are here in 2023, a lot of these movies from 1983 are celebrating the 40th anniversary. And what's been really cool as these movies are being celebrated again, they're also showing these in a limited time in theaters. And they are showing, or did show, Flashdance in the theaters. And when Aaron came back here to Santa Barbara, this is one of the movies that we had to go see. And I actually had never seen it on the big screen before. It was video or on a channel or something like that. And it had been a while I'd actually seen this. I did pick up the special edition DVD, special collector's edition. It's got some special features, but they just released it also on 4K with some extra special features as well. But we went to go see it in the theater. And Aaron, I want to talk with you first. I guess we should start with Michael Nouri.
Can I just go on about the trivia about how they kept that? What was her name? Maureen Jahan.
Maureen Martyr, yes.
No. It was the
body double.
Oh, the body double.
I love how it was
Maureen.
that she was kept hidden from the press because the filmmakers did not want to ruin the illusion. Her wig ruined the illusion. There was no illusion. We all knew that was a body double. The wig.
But we didn't know who it was. We didn't know who
Doesn't
it was.
matter.
Yeah.
We all knew. No one cared. Okay. So he was
Michael Nouri.
a massive crush. Like he's one of my first crushes when I was like 10. And I saw him in that show Cliffhangers. I think they did one season. Good luck trying to find it. There's some very, very bad VHS versions on
Kyle and I,
YouTube.
we remember Cliffhangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there were the 3 stories, and he was the Count Dracula one, and he was in New York during the 80s, but he played the Moonlight Sonata. I remember that. I thought that was the greatest thing ever. So I actually went to see the film because of him. But then, of course, I was a 13-year-old girl, and we went to see it 500,000
By the way,
times.
that 13-year-old girl did return when we went to go see the screening of this movie. I just want to say.
It's true. And also, I remember going out to Just Jeans, which is like sort of the Gap here, but not really. But Just Jeans, to buy that top
In Australia.
and they had the Flashdance on across the top of it, and I wish I kept it because it'd probably be worth heaps. But we went straight after it and bought it. I think it was. But yeah, he was hot. He was just, I don't know, something about him. He was a man. He wasn't a boy. He was a man, and he was hot.
Which is the
still
reason why
hot.
we also watched The Hidden. She introduced the movie The Hidden to me, which is a very good movie, by the way.
Just, I don't know, something about him. He's just, yeah.
Jennifer Beals on the big screen. Beautiful. Awesome. But I got to say, the soundtrack was fantastic. It was great seeing. I see why they chose her. Now, I want to go to something that you told me, a little bit of trivia here, about how she was chosen over Demi Moore.
He was Demi Moore, and I think it was in the Don Simpson book.
Give me the PG-13 version.
Oh, okay. Well, and again, I don't let a good story get in the way of truth. So who knows? Apparently, Don Simpson came in and put 3 pictures in front of people, and I think it was Jennifer Beal, Demi Moore, and I don't know who the other one was. And he basically said, "Who would you like to?" And they chose Jennifer Beals, and that's how you win a role.
That was, of course, after Don Simpson probably did some cocaine. So yeah.
You didn't do the PG version.
Well,
you just made it an M.
This is true.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Lacey, your thoughts on Flashdance?
It's not my favorite movie from the 80s. I will say that later when I worked at Blockbuster, people would come in thinking they were getting Footloose, and then they would go home with Flashdance because they'd ask me for a movie. And they would ask for a movie, and I would give it to them, and then they would take it home. And then they would come back very upset because they did not get to see a whole bunch of children like rebelling against their parents to lion dance in a country barn. And instead they got this like very dramatic thing that they were showing their 12-year-olds. It was often, it was very often this happened, to the point where I would actually say, Do you mean Footloose? No. It's called Flashdance. My daughter said it's called Flashdance. Okay. Is your daughter over 15? What? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Kyle, your thoughts on Flashdance?
I think a movie that really defines the early 80s in a lot of ways, Kevin. And I also am going to say this. The first movie I truly remember that had a music video tie into it so strong and powerful. A couple of them, actually. Yeah. Because obviously, you've got Maniac, but then you've got the Irene Cara song, which is just fantastic. And to this day, one of the best songs ever done. And just the videos to this just really, I think, helped. And casting Jennifer Beals, who has such a unique look to her and is just so stunning, just added to this. And I mean, I just remember everybody talking about this movie. I remember even my parents when they actually bought it when it came out on VHS, and it took them going on vacation before they finally let me watch it, even though they didn't know I watched it. But but just an incredible film, and I think one that definitely is defining of the era of the film of that time in the 80s and the how films were done and the type of films being done in the 80s.
Can I add some more trivia?
Yeah, please.
So, and one of those movies that the soundtrack was as big as the film. Like they went.
I think it was bigger. I think it
Mm.
was bigger. I think the soundtrack was bigger than the film.
There's an argument for that.
Funny enough, with the soundtrack, Maniac was actually written for another film called Maniac, which was a horror film, and they actually were going to use it for that. So it's called Maniac, but they didn't, and they used it for this film, but changed some of the wording.
Mm.
So that was actually made for something else. And also, while listening to that other podcast about Irene Cara, when I was listening to the Fame podcast, they were saying about how she took the guys for Flashdance for What a Feeling, for the song, to court to get money.
Oh, wow.
Because she was underpaid, or and she really did, like, that's why she disappeared for so long, and she was there for years, and in the end she ended up getting like 1.5 million, and I think the whole song sold like 30 million
it's crazy
copies or something.
I remember when we were watching it in the 40th anniversary screening recently. It was I felt like the people that were in that theater with us, and there wasn't a lot, but they were like, when the song was coming on, we were singing to it and just feeling the vibe, and and then Michael Nuri comes on the screen, and I had no chance. It was funny.
He's still hot, and it's funny rewatching it. I remember I thought there was more songs in it. For some reason, I thought there were more dance things, and it wasn't. And it's still like all 80s sort of films. It's a little bit of sort of bittersweet undercurrent of not everything is High School Musical in it.
But also, guys, let's be honest. Still has one of the most iconic images in Hollywood history in it.
Oh, yeah. The water and the land and the dance thing. Yeah. And what's funny is I forgot how soon that actually happens in the film.
Yeah, that's in the early, beginning.
Like the first 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm like, wow, I thought they saved this towards the end. And it had been a long time since I've seen it. So, yeah. All right, guys. We're going to go to our final film here in April of 1983. And that is Valley Girl. Made just under $17 million in the theater. A lot of great bands in the soundtrack: Modern English, Men at Work, Felony, Eddie Grant, Josie Cotton, the Plimsolls, the Flirts, the Paolas, Sparks, Psychedelic Furs, Gary Myrick, Bonnie Hayes with the Wild Combo. Julie, a girl from the valley, meets Randy, a punk from the city. They are from different worlds and find love. Somehow they need to stay together in spite of her trendy, shallow friends. Directed by Martha Coolidge, stars Nicolas Cage, Deborah Foreman, and Elizabeth Daily. Guys, this movie holds a very special place in both Aaron and I's fandom here. We'll get into that in a minute here. But Kyle, you have some trivia for us.
That I do. The club scenes where Randy takes Julie were filmed at a Sunset Strip club originally named Filthy McNasty's in the 1960s and the 1970s. In the 80s, it was called the Central, which was later purchased by Johnny Depp and is now known as the Viper Room. Of course, that is where River Phoenix infamously passed away on Halloween of 1993. Nicolas Cage had a real-life crush on co-star Deborah Foreman. He later admitted in an interview, "I just adored Deborah. There were so there was very little acting on my part. Cage would write her poetry on set, and one poem was titled American Girl, which Foreman still has to this day. This is the first movie in which Nicolas Coppola is billed as Nicolas Cage, one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite romantic comedies. The iconic poster image still used on the DVD and Blu-ray artwork of Randy, Nicolas Cage, and Julie is not Deborah Foreman, the actress, but actress Tina Thebridge, who wound up playing Randy's nightclub lover before Foreman was cast.
Here is the DVD release that actually has the correct Valley Girl on it with Deborah Foreman right there. We'll get into that in a second here,
now,
guys.
Kevin, we teased this at the beginning of the show. You have a very special Valley Girl experience that you and Aaron had most recently.
Yes, one of the other films that is celebrating its 40th anniversary with screenings. And when Aaron was getting ready to fly over here, she sent me a frantic text.
It was no frantic. It was just very passive aggressive.
Yes, whatever. Yes. And I was at work, and she says, guess what? Valley Girl is being shown on the big screen at the famous Chinese theater in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, kind of like pretty soon, like right across the street from the El Capitan Disney-owned theater. And she said that there is going to be cast there doing a Q&A starring Deborah Foreman. And so I'm getting on my phone going, gotta get it. Got tickets. It was awesome. We stayed down in Hollywood when Aaron first arrived here, and we had a great time at the event. And, I wanted to make sure too that we actually had a DVD to bring with us to get signed. But guys, we also met several of the actors. There's a signed DVD picture right there. But we also met Deborah Foreman herself, director Martha Coolidge, several of the actors, of course, Elizabeth Daily, and who's the gentleman again? I'm forgetting his name.
I played Fred.
The guy that played Fred. I'm trying to remember his name real quick here. Very cool guy. But we met several of the other actors as well. But they also had people from Josie Cotton on there as well.
Some guys from the Plimsolls.
From the Plimsolls, the guys that played in that band, that in that location that did become the Viper Room as well. It was really, really cool. We watched the movie first, then we had the Q&A. But when they were taking questions from the audience, I wasn't planning on asking anything. I don't know if Aaron was, but Aaron, you decided to ask some questions and step up. What happened?
Oh, they were asking questions. I never stand up and, ask questions.
Cameron Dye was the gentleman in this picture.
Yeah, and but I decided for this one I would, and so I stood up and said I was from Australia, and that this was a very big part of my growing up. A girlfriend of mine, my best friend Nikki Smythe, and I would literally rent this every weekend. So we watch it like every weekend. And the funny thing was that I think it was on Roadshow, and on the video on the back, it would have like translation of the slang. So, so like for sure, or, all those sort of like things that the Valley Girl said, it would, be translated onto like good or, bad or whatever. Don't know why they did that. We totally got what they were talking about. So I just sort of said that, we loved it, and, you're loved even in Australia. It was, and just thank you for, making my teenage years even better with this film, because it was, educational, it was truthful. And I just loved it, and I still love it.
And when this Q&A stopped, there was kind of a rush of fans to get pictures and autographs, and it wasn't set up for that, but we still went up there anyway, and we saw Elizabeth Daily, and we saw Deborah Foreman. Deborah Foreman was getting ready to like bolt out of there, but what did you do?
I pulled the Aussie card.
The Aussie card.
Yeah, I stood in front of her. I said, hi. Just when she's like, I remember, they were all very, you're from Australia, and she gave me a big hug. So I totally pulled the Australian card.
And we did meet Martha Coolidge, the director, in the lobby, because we were like there early. We were one of the first fans there, and she was one of the first people there that were part of the film. And we got her to sign our DVD. She was very sweet about that.
So so we got photos. So so when in doubt, pull the Aussie card, because
what you're saying, Aaron, is you are now forever known as the Australian Valley Girl.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, we did want to tease that we will be doing an actual couch potato theater of Valley Girl, where we're going to get more into the plot and a little more about the story and the behind the scenes of going to this event as well. We're going to be recording that very soon, so make sure you guys stay tuned for Couch Potato Theater of Valley Girl. We're going to have our good friend Jennifer Walk on as a guest to discuss Valley Girl. Lacey, did you ever get into Valley Girl? Was this your thing? Did you get into it later? What are your thoughts on Valley Girl?
Later, I got into Nicolas Cage. I started when I started doing like a deep dive into his older stuff, and I saw it probably when I was late teens, maybe. Yeah. Loved it. Loved the shoes. Loved the purse. Love everything. Yeah.
Kyle, your thoughts on Valley Girl?
So I have an interesting relationship with this movie because for a long time I refused to watch it because my sister went through kind of like this. I'm living in Alaska, but I'm going through a Valley Girl stage with some of the And so, as being the bratty little half brother at the time, I was like, yeah, no. But I did eventually watch this, like Lacey said, for Nick Cage. And it's a very fun film that definitely recognizes a very distinct cultural time from the 1980s.
Gotcha. Yeah. This movie holds a special place in Aaron and I's fandom, and it was really nice to see it on the big screen. You saw it in the big screen originally, right?
No. It was always video. Yeah,
video.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I did not.
No, the other day I saw it for the first time on the big screen.
It was nice to see it with other fans. It was really, really cool. We'll get into that more later on Couch Potato Theater, but absolutely love this movie, and it has a fantastic soundtrack. I think they complement each other well. I don't know if one outweighs the other. What was your thoughts about the soundtrack to the movie? Because we've had that discussion before about sometimes the soundtrack's better than the movie.
Oh, no. It's they're together.
Yeah, they go together well. So, all right, guys, any final thoughts on Valley Girl? Anybody?
Just gag me with a spoon, man.
Nice. All right, guys.
You're dead, rich man.
All right, guys. Top grossing films. Did any of these films that we discussed make the top grossing films? And yes, one of them did.
You think?
And that was Flashdance. Flashdance came in at number 3. That year, it made $92 million. Of course, kept on playing and made a bunch more, but made it into the top 3 of the most popular films of 1993.
Staying Alive? Really?
Staying Alive. Oh,
Spoilers.
We've been discussing the films and pop culture of 1983, guys. Thank you guys for checking us out. And next episode, we're going to be discussing May of 1983 and June of 1983. So make sure you guys check that out. There's a little teaser right there, guys. First of all, as we close things out, Kyle, where can we find you on the Fandom Podcast Network?
You can find me all over the place on the Fandom Podcast Network, whether it's doing our Culture Clash Live, doing a little True Believers, which we just put out our great episode covering all things Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I believe that most of my crew from that show was on this episode of Time Warp as well, at least for a time being of it. But, we just had a lot of fun doing a lot of content creation here on the Fandom Podcast Network. If you want to find me personally, you can find me on Facebook, obviously. You can also find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom. And you know what, guys? It's always fun to travel through the Time Warp with you.
Lacey, our queen of movie foo, where can we find you?
I am Lacey Pants on most of the platforms. On Instagram, I'm the Lacey Pants. I'm not very interesting, though. I don't post. I'm not a good follow. I'm just saying, I'm not a good follow. I follow
My name is Kevin. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Again, please check out the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube and fpnet.podbean.com. And please leave any comments on the YouTube channel. Let us know. And please share your thoughts on these 1983 films. As I mentioned, next episode we'll be discussing episode 3 of Time Warp 1983. We'll be discussing the movies of May and June. All right, guys, thank you so much. Again, I'd like to thank my good friends here, Kyle Wagner and Lacee Aderhold. But before we go, I want to thank my lovely wife, Erin. How can we find you on social media?
Instagram under Erin Guild 666.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Really on it now.
Again, guys, thank you so much. And again, we'll see you in 1983.